Um, Hi, everyone. My name is Ashley Robinson. My pronouns are she, her, and hers, and I'm the graduate assistant for the UConn Higher Education and Student Affairs program, and I'll be facilitating our information session today. We would like to begin by acknowledging that as we gather virtually today, the land on which our university is located is the territory of the Mohegan, Mashantucket Pequot, Eastern Pequot, Schaghticoke, Golden Hill Pawcasset, Nipmuc, and Lenape peoples who have stewarded this land throughout the generations. We thank them for their strength and resilience in protecting this land and aspire to uphold our responsibilities according to their example. We recognize the rich knowledge and experiences that Native and Indigenous people bring to our educational spaces, and we acknowledge that Indigenous methodologies, pedagogies, and existence in higher education are acts of resistance against an oppressive educational system that has exploited Native lands and attempted to erase Native knowledge and ways of living. This week at UConn, we're celebrating Indigenous Peoples Week, so we're especially reflecting on the importance of this today. So a few business items before we proceed. I do want to make everyone in the audience aware that you can ask questions using the Q&A feature. So we'll answer those questions throughout the panel following each of our discussion prompts. When you put a question in the Q&A feature, please just go ahead and direct that toward host so that I can share that with our panelists. So the purpose of this information session today is to provide prospective students with insights and information about what it's like to be a HESA student from current HESA students, program faculty, and assistantship supervisors. We're going to address questions about the application process, the academic experience of the HESA program, assistantship experiences, and the social life and culture of HESA and UConn. We hope that this session offers you a helpful window into the HESA experience and an opportunity to become familiar with our HESA community. Before I ask our panelists to introduce themselves and talk about our HESA program, I want to start by sharing a brief overview of our program and information about our application process. So HESA is a 2-year cohort-based residential master's program with classes between 15 to 20 students. Our program features 2 semesters of practicum experiences, a full-year hands-on assessment class, and a capstone project that's a comprehensive exam in which students show evidence of and reflect on their learning toward our program's competencies. You'll hear more about these things from our panelists. Our program emphasizes social justice, practical preparation through theory to practice, and coursework that's focused both on student learning and development and higher education administration. As you are likely aware, the HESA application is currently open and it is due on December 1st. Your application to HESA includes the online application form, a resume, 2 essays, 3 letters of recommendation, unofficial transcripts, and for international students, official TOEFL scores. We do not require GRE scores, and if you submit them, we will not review them. For more information about our application materials, please do refer to our website. We strongly encourage all students who meet the requirements for admission to apply for admission, regardless of citizenship or immigration status. If you have questions about how your citizenship or immigration status will affect your experience in our program, please send us an email and we'll be happy to talk with you about that. A couple more notes. All full-time HESA students are placed in graduate assistantships or GAs, which you will hear about from our panelists. That's a 20-hour-a-week job with a university department or office that's connected to what you're learning and studying in the HESA coursework. In a GA position, you get hands-on experience with the kind of work you might pursue after completing your degree. Your GA position will cover the cost of your tuition. You'll be paid bi-weekly like a regular job. And there are lots of other great benefits to being a GA at UConn, like health insurance and fee waivers, which our students, I know, are excited to talk about. The HESA admission process includes interviews with faculty and for assistantships, and qualified applicants will be notified by mid-January if you're being invited to interview. Interviews will be held virtually this year in February, with assistantship interviews scheduled to take place during the week of February 21st. Obviously, we're in a pandemic, as we have all noticed, And during the current pandemic, UConn is operating in a hybrid model of remote and in-person operations. So we've temporarily moved all of our programs, coursework, and programming online. Our HESA GAs have a variety of work roles, and as employees of the university, their work has been in accordance with that plan. So some HESA GAs are working fully remote during this time, and others are doing some work on campus. So that's the sort of notes, the brief version of everything that's on our website to familiarize you with our program. And I hope that that gave you some questions as well to add to the discussion. So with that, I'm going to turn things over to our panelists to introduce themselves, and then we'll jump into our questions. So panelists, take it away.
I'll start. I am Nella Kwasniczka, and I'm the program director for UConn Pre-College Summer. So that's, in a nutshell, an opportunity for high school students to come on campus and get to know the campus and what college life is like.
Hi, everyone. Sorry, we're not scripted in our introductions, but Trevor, do you want to go? Go for it.
All right, I can go. Hi, my name's Trevor. Pronouns are he, his. I am a first-year cohort member in the HESA program. My graduate assistant is in residential life.
All right, I guess I will go ahead. Hi, everyone. My name is Adam McCready. My pronouns are he, him, and his. I am an assistant professor in residence in the higher ed and student affairs program and have the luxury of teaching and advising a number of our students and teaching courses throughout the year. Before going further, Ashley, thank you for the wonderful introduction of our program. That was fantastic.
Yay! Hi everyone, my name is Lupita Paniagua. Today I'll be using she, her, ella pronouns. I'm a second year in the HESA program, and my graduate assistantship is with the Dean of Students office, kind of on their crisis management, but also on victim support services and bystander initiatives.
Awesome. Thank you all so much. So let's go ahead and discuss the first question. So again, for all of our attendees, we're going to hear from our panelists first on each of our questions, but please send us questions in the Q&A throughout. Don't wait until the end. Anything that someone says, if you have a follow-up on that, drop it in the Q&A box, and I will pose it to them. So we look forward to hearing your questions. So the first question that I'd like everyone to talk about is, in your opinion, what distinguishes or makes the UConn HESA program unique?
So, Ash, I'm happy to hop in first, and I hope others will join in. I think there are a variety of things that make our program unique. I would start that our program really truly believes in the development, learning, and growth of reflective, socially just scholar practitioners in our field, and our field being higher education and student affairs. And by that, I mean, I think other programs espouse those values, and I think some do elements well, but I think those are fully ingrained in our in the ethos of our program, but also embedded in our coursework and how our program operates from day one. For example, that our program is one of I wish all of us were here. I always forget if we're one of we're at least one of two, if not the only master's level higher education and student affairs programming offering an intergroup dialogue course, and engaging in dialogues across racial and ethnic identity difference and identities. We also engage in reflection throughout our program, whether that be in small group conversations in our class, reflective journaling throughout our coursework, or even in the online environment, video journals and responses through peers. I mean, I think there's a lot of, we intentionally engage in reflection and alike. And then, beyond that, I think this the concept of scholar practitioner, whereas, what students are getting, the theory to practice of what students are getting in their academic work and how that influences their practice in their graduate assistantships, and then vice versa, how do their assistantships inform and help them make meaning of what they're getting in the coursework is something that we really value. And so our classes are integrating conversations around their assistantship and lived experiences. And those things are valued and aren't operating in silos. The last few points I'll make is that we operate with a cohort model and really value the community and peer-based experiences, and that so all of our core courses, the cohorts or members are taking the courses together. And I think our cohort size are sized to be large enough to bring diverse students from diverse backgrounds and experiences together, but also small enough where there's intimate conversations and that peers genuinely know one another across the cohort. And that, again, we really value the practical experience, whether it's coming through the graduate assistantship, whether it's coming through the practicum that we require for the program, or summer internships. So again, I think students leave our program, and I really truly believe have the skills and competencies to be reflective, socially just scholar practitioners.
I'll jump in just in kind of what you were saying. I think that there are, so I work with the GAs in the office on their practicums, in their graduate assistant positions. And so I think that there's just really dedicated faculty, and it's really nice as a practitioner working in the field to work with our GA and work with the faculty so that we're aware. They're really good at making us aware of what's going on in your classes so that we can support you. And we find that we have a lot of conversations in class. So you might be talking about some theories or things in class, and something happens in our office and we're aware of it, so that we are able to have those conversations so that you can actually take what you're learning in class and apply it to a real situation, which is nice. And just kind of goes into the assessment of the year-long assessment project that students have. You're putting theory into practice, which makes it unique, I think, to other programs. So you're not just learning about assessment, research, and evaluation. You're actually able to put what you're learning into practice by working with different offices on campus. So for example, last year, we were one of the offices that provided this opportunity and worked with a team of HESA students. So our office has a ton of data and we don't have time to do much with that. But because we were able to collaborate with the HESA program and our office, we were able to work with a team of HESA students who assessed some of our data and they just came up with really great insights to what for us. And they also were able to validate our work. And now we're able to use that. We use that in our presentations, but at the same time, students were able to apply what they're learning.
Great.
Okay, sorry, mine went off Nella, so I'm glad that Nella hit something that I think was really important for me, which is that I don't think the HESA program is siloed at our university. I think different departments and staff members know who we are, and you really, I felt like when I went into a room and I said like, hi, I'm a UConn HESA, people knew what that meant and knew that, there was some connection there, which I really appreciated. Something else that really drew me to the program and like makes our program unique, in my opinion, is the close relationships that we have with our faculty members. I do feel like we have a good sense of like who they are beyond their scholarship, like actually who they are as people, like what do they do on their free time, and like do they have a dog, and those kinds of things that I feel like it really makes the experience more personal than what I had expected of graduate school, whatever you make up in your mind, but that's what I thought it would be.
Yeah, I can echo that in terms of the personal relationships that we have with faculty, especially in this online environment. It's funny, like sometimes people's kids will make like guest appearances. But it's just great having that type of relationship with faculty where that's not like an awkward dynamic. I also something that made this program unique for me is that when I was going through the application process and the interview process, is that I felt like the program wasn't here to, just get me so that they can say, oh, this person's attending the program. They really cared about like what my experience was actually going to be about in the program and what I was going to get out of it. as like a student and as a professional. For example, everyone in our program needs to have a graduate assistantship. There were some higher ed or student affairs programs that I was applying to where an assistantship wasn't required. And they're like, oh yeah, you can still come take this program and like pay full tuition to come get this master's at our school. And it just didn't feel like they were as invested in like my development as a person, but sort of just wanted another student. So I appreciate how UConn really, the HESA program really tries to do what it can to make this experience the most beneficial for us.
Awesome. Thank you all. So we're starting to get some great questions. So I'm going to start to pose some of them to you. We don't need everyone to answer each of these questions, just to be clear, because we will be here forever if we do that. So the first question is, how have professors been supportive, especially now with our current climate? So maybe Lupita or Trevor, if you want to take this one.
Yeah, I was going to say, I think that's us. Yeah, so I would say that they have been fairly supportive. I think that connects with the close relationships. I think as we are able to develop those connections with our faculty members, it becomes, I wouldn't say like easy, because, you know, there's always barriers in education, but I think it's like they are people who I wouldn't have a problem much now, or even like as full classes saying like this doesn't work for our learning. And I think that's really rooted in what Trevor was saying. Because I think while this program has structure and while our professors have a syllabus that they're trying to help us learn through, if that's not conducive to what we need and what we want and what we're going to learn, then why are we doing it? And I think that that is something that our faculty does well, is really question us and ask us if this is something that we need and want. And specifically right now with a pandemic and what's happening, I do feel supported in the program. So I would say they are supportive.
Yeah, and I can echo that. There was one class in particular for my cohort where we were struggling with like some of the assignments, and we voiced that to the professor, and he completely altered the syllabus and changed like the structure of the course for the rest of the semester. So there's definitely a responsiveness to our feedback and like how the courses are like hitting our needs or not.
Awesome. I'm going to give you another question. So I'm going to combine some questions. You might be surprised, but folks have similar questions that they're sending me. So this question is about both the diversity of the HESA program and also what types of resources are available for underrepresented students. Specifically, folks are interested about resources for folks who identify within the Latinx community, folks who are first-generation students. Could we address that question?
Yeah, if you're thinking about just like demographics in...
Oh, we lost you, Trevor.
No?
You're kind of back.
Okay, sorry. I can keep this quick. In my cohort, and 5 of us are white, so that shows like, I guess, just like the racial graphics of our cohort. And as Adam was saying before, a lot of programs talk about social justice, but in a lot of ways it's truly embedded in like every single class that I have right now.
Awesome. Anybody else want to speak to that?
Yeah, I would say as a non-Black Latinx community member, I'm going to be fully transparent that it can be really hard sometimes to find resources geared for specifically minoritized students at UConn. That is also PWI, predominantly white institution. Break that down. And so I'm not going to lie to you that it was hard at first and hard. Specifically, like thinking about what communities that you may be coming from. But I also think that there are resources where you need to find them. It can just be navigate that at first. Once you're connected which could take a week, and sometimes it takes a month, and sometimes it takes a year. But once you're connected, I do feel like there are resources to support you as in your identities. And there was a question about first-gen students. I'm also a first-gen student. And one of the things that I'm really grateful for is I think that our program does a good job of like breaking things down and also really complicating what I thought graduate school was going to look like. I think like I said earlier, I think I had this idea of like, what is graduate school and what does that mean for me and how stressed am I going to be? And those are all super valid questions that you might be asking yourself, whether you're first gen or not. And I think that and talks you through those questions and really is clear in communication of what the expectations are. And again, like I feel like they're supportive in all the identities that we may hold.
Awesome. Thank you.
And
Okay.
actually, just really
Yeah.
quick, follow up. I think it also ties into the prior question around support. Just so folks know, like while I am our only white identifying faculty member, and the rest of our faculty all identify as faculty of color or as individuals of color. And so I think as far as support, I think keeping that in context, and that all of our research agendas focus on diversity, equity, and inclusion in higher education. And so as far as our interest and alignment, we are here to support you. And I think that again shows through our curriculum, but also through our advising styles and how we support our students along the way.
Awesome. Thank you. Okay, so just for all of our wonderful attendees, I want to let you know I am not going to get to every single question that you all have addressed here. These are super wonderful questions. We are going to send some follow-up out. So we're going to do our best to hit the main themes, but wonderful, wonderful questions. So the sort of next topic that I want to pose to the panelists, and I'm going to incorporate some of the questions that we're getting, is from your perspective, how does the UConn HESA program prepare students for a career in higher education and student affairs? And within this, if maybe we could touch on the coursework, right? What does that look like, and how is that preparing students for a career, and what are some of the emphases of the coursework? Also on graduate assistantships, the different types that we have and what that looks like. And maybe if we can tuck into that, we have a question: what does day in the life of a HESA student look like? So I would hope that the day in the life of the HESA student repeated over 2 years prepares you for your career in higher education and student affairs. So perhaps we can look at it through that lens. But generally, what are the kinds of things that are happening within our program that are preparing folks for their future career?
I can go. So from my perspective as a site supervisor, my goal really, and I tell my GAs this, is to prepare them to feel like they can walk away and run the program by the time that they graduate. So what we do is really we try to provide as many opportunities to work in all aspects of our program, right? From budgeting, they work on policy and procedures, they work with faculty, hiring and training. I try to really get them, there's specific projects that we expect you to work with. You have your main projects, but really I try to pull you in different ways, especially if you express to me that you have an interest in a certain area. I really try to provide that opportunity for you, because I really want to challenge our students. That's how you're going to grow, right? I want you to succeed. So we're going to support you, even if it's something new and different, and you might be a little intimidated by the project or not be so sure of it. We want to provide you enough support to succeed. And, I really even think it's great for you to make mistakes and fail, because that's what we do. I've made big mistakes and I've failed, and as a professional, and that's okay. And I think that's what really is going to help you to prepare you once you get into a position after you graduate.
I would say quickly from a faculty perspective, then I think Trevor and Lupita have definitely some fantastic advice to offer as well. I would say that our program has 9 core competencies and outcomes that frame our program. And again, those aren't things that we just list on our website. Those are really integrated across all of our coursework, and some of courses are more explicitly addressing particular ones over others. But one thing that I can talk about now is that even in your first semester, your students are creating a competency action plan, thinking intentionally about which of those competencies they want to work on. And that continues through the whole first year about, again, the plan and the goals and how students are working toward intentionally around their interest around those competencies. And students are getting skills and awareness and knowledge in all different ways. But that continues into year 2, and the comprehensive exam that Ash talked about, which is an oral in the spring, is a presentation on 2 of those competencies. So there's an alignment across the full experience. Again, I think has students prepared to be able to talk when they enter the job market around skills and experiences that are relatable, and thinking intentionally about how they're growing in the program. So I think that's, again, very much embedded in our curriculum. As well as, I mean, that's not even talking about the skills students gain through, again, the dialogue course and how to active listen and to engage with peers across difference, and how to confront things, or how to actually engage in assessment, which is I think a very pertinent skill and competency in our field. So I'll leave it at that, but I know that, again, Trevor and Lupita have some more to add.
I can go. Sorry, my dog is barking. That's why I was like, no. But this is the reality of virtual moments. But yeah, so second year, getting ready to graduate and do the things, hopefully, you know, comp exam. But I think that I do feel prepared. I think my hopefully was a joke. I think that our program, something that I think Adam didn't mention with the competency action plan, is that you share that with your graduate assistantship supervisors. And if you like to share it with your practicum supervisors, I did, you're welcome to. And I think that really guides, I guess, like Nella was saying, the conversation on like, what is it that you want to learn? What are the skills that you want to develop, so that whatever field or area of interest that you have when you leave the program, you feel more prepared for. Additionally, I think sometimes I am my biggest barrier. Like, I think I am gaining these skills, but I'm like, oh my gosh, there's no way that I'm gonna do this thing. But I think that our faculty, even in that side of like the emotional support, and by faculty, I really mean everybody around you. So like your graduate assistantship supervisors, your faculty, your practicum supervisors are all working to also support you in that way. So not only are you gaining the skills, but also gaining the confidence, so that when you are applying for jobs and doing the whole search that's coming up, you feel more prepared, not only in the skills that you have in your resumes and all those logistical things, but also emotionally and how you may feel about yourself going into that.
Yeah, I guess just picking up on what you said, Lupita, there's definitely like ample opportunities to gain different types of experience. So we have what we're learning in our classes, which for me, someone who didn't have much of experience in higher education, like I wasn't an RA during undergrad or anything like that, it really provides like a good framework of like the history and like where we're going. So someone who, like I said, hasn't had much experience in higher ed before, I feel like I'm getting a very, very comprehensive like overview and education in terms of classes. But then we also have our assistantships where we're working, and then we also have practicums, which I guess you can think of maybe as sort of like internships where we do work in other offices that aren't the same office as our assistantship. So I'm working in residential life, but I could have a practicum in like the conduct office, or maybe I want to like do student programming or career advising. And those practicums can happen at other offices at UConn or even at different institutions. So by the time the 2 years of the program is over, you definitely have like a whole array of different experiences that you could have had. And I guess that goes to the day in the life of me. A little bit of all of those things. I have class, I do work, I do homework, especially in this virtual world, it mostly blends together a lot of the times, to be honest, but I tend to do a little bit of each aspect each day.
Great. I wonder if we can expand a little bit more on one of the things that Trevor was just talking about in terms of different functional areas, right? Different areas of student affairs and higher education, both thinking about maybe for students, I know Trevor, you're in like month 1.5 here, but like, did you know what you wanted to do with the rest of your life when you started HESA? Probably not. So thinking about, you know, what are some of the opportunities to explore different functional areas within our program, And what are some of the functional areas that you have explored, that you're interested in exploring, that you think you're going to get an opportunity, or you have had the opportunity through the HESA program, if that makes sense?
Yeah, I can start with that. I don't know if anybody plays Sims, but I always call myself a non-committal Sim, which is like why I think in the beginning I was like, student affairs is amazing because like you don't have to pick right away. And so I think that's one of the things that initially drew me to like HESA in general. But that really guides me into like my topic of like I had no idea. If you asked me a year ago what functional area I wanted to go into, I wouldn't know what to tell you. I'd be like, I don't know, probably something in res life, because I was an RA in my undergrad experience. And I think now I not that I wouldn't have that answer. If anything, it got a little more fuzzy than before. But I think that even in my practicum or my graduate assistant position, I was able to think through more of those things. So I know that I talked to my advisor about like what interested me about my position. What did I feel like I was missing in my graduate assistantship that I wanted? Even down to like, what did I like? What drew me in initially? And I was like, well, I did programs as an RA. And I didn't think that that would even be like a place that I would want to go. That's not where I put myself originally. And then I did a practicum in a programming board at UConn, and I love it. And I stayed for another semester. So I think like you don't have to come in with all the answers, and there are opportunities to figure out those answers ish as you keep going. I say ish because they're going to change, and we're fluid people, and they will change as we go on. But oh yeah, functional area. Functional area are just different departments and areas, which is not a really great description. Somebody else should probably take this, but just different areas that you can work in. So like student activities or like dean of students / student support services. Someone else probably has more answers, but I feel like there are ample opportunities to explore different areas that you might be interested in, even if it's like a sliver of thought that you have in that area. I think you can definitely talk through that.
Yeah, and I don't know if I have a more comprehensive definition for functional area, but I guess I just wanted to add in that, at least in my experience so far, the classes that I'm in very much so intentionally explores like all the different departments that are possible to work in at like a college or university setting. And I would almost encourage you all to have an open mind about which area you would like to get into. Student affairs is such a broad field, way more broad than I knew when I was applying. So having like an exploratory mindset around which area you'd like to get into, I think perhaps would be beneficial in a way.
And actually, I'm not sure if this is helpful. I think it will be. I would say that we as faculty aim to support students in any direction they want to go. And our students use Practica both for higher education and student affairs practice, but some also use it to engage in research or to serve as TAs for classes or serve as facilitators for first year experience courses. So there's a variety of ways to gain experience based on interest, and we have alumni who end up in residential life or student activities, or I'm trying to think about some more traditional areas of student affairs, but we have alumni who also end up in nonprofit organizations or who aim to go into doctoral work pretty quickly, and we prepare them to have the skills to go into doctoral work. So I think we're cognizant about trying to provide the support from faculty lens that will best aid the student in the direction of where they want to go. We also recognize, like that, to Lupita's point, that folks may not even know at the end of year two, like be perfectly candidate, may not have like a firm direction, and that's also okay, right? But we're going to do everything we can to support them and provide advice and guidance. And we're also very fortunate we have 500 very committed alumni who are willing to help and support our students throughout their two-year experience, but also throughout their job searches and beyond as well.
Awesome. I would also say for folks, if you aren't following us on Instagram yet, I would definitely follow us on Instagram, because last Friday, 2 Fridays ago, we did a Friday FAQ that was all about different student affairs job functions. And we had some amazing engagement from our alumni that's in our saved stories about all the cool different jobs that they're doing now. So I would check that out. They're doing so many interesting and different things, like Adam said. So the next question, before we go on to that, I do want to just clarify a couple of questions we got in the chat. So one is that all full-time HESA students do have graduate assistantships. So our admissions process is tied to selection and offering graduate assistantships. So that is a part of our program, which is really great. And if you've looked at our website, you may have seen some of the example job descriptions of assistantship sites listed on the website there. That's just a few, and they do change slightly from year to year. So as we go through the application process, we will be letting folks know about the assistantship sites that we have for next year and sharing that information. But also, as folks were saying before, if your dream assistantship site is not on that list, recognizing that there's ample opportunity within our practicum as well to get experience with other areas in student affairs and higher education. So the assistantship is not the be-all end-all of the practical experience that you'll get within our program. Okay, so shifting gears a little bit to talk specifically about our application process, and in particular, talking a little bit about what are the things that we're looking for in potential HESA students, and certainly the students are welcome to weigh in on that question, but maybe you could also talk a little bit about what advice you would give to HESA applicants having gone through the process yourself. So what are we looking for? What's going to make folks successful in our application process generally?
So I feel like that might be good for me to speak to this as well. And I think I'm looking forward to hear what others say. I think that we are, to my point earlier, we're looking for, and not to sound repetitive, but folks who are motivated to be reflective, socially just scholar practitioners. Not necessarily saying that they necessarily have all the skills coming in, right, or knowledge. I mean, I think those are competencies we want folks to continue to gain and hone throughout their experience and really beyond. But that they're showing a genuine interest and openness to that, right? And so by reflective, I mean that they're able to be aware of and think about and be critical of their own journeys through higher education and other lived experiences. And because part of our program, right, as a court model, is we want folks who are going to be open and engage and to be vulnerable with one another and to form community. And so I think recognizing that coming in, that that's part of our ethos of the program. And again, folks who show a genuine commitment and interest in diversity, equity, inclusion, and social justice is paramount. Again, it's not just at face value. We want folks who are genuinely committed to the work and to challenge, interested in challenging and identifying and challenging oppressive structures in higher education for the betterment of minoritized or oppressed individuals. So I think again, and again, experiences will vary. Some folks will have great depth in other areas, certain areas, and others are looking for improvement. But I think a commitment to those areas are what we value.
I would say something as a site. One thing that we definitely look for is initiative, because we look to our GAs to really bring new ideas that we can help to build and develop our office, our department, our program. And I think new people coming in can bring that for us, bring those fresh ideas for us. When we've been in the program for so many years, we're still fairly young within the field of what we do. But I can tell you we've had 4 HESA GAs, and I can list great projects that they've worked on that have really made our program so much better because of experiences and that they've had in past positions or in their undergrad, or maybe they worked for a couple of years after undergrad, and they really can bring a lot to our program. So we look to that's one of the things that we look to. And then just kind of what Adam said is that to be dedicated to the field and want to learn is really big as well. We all have a story. I guess this kind of goes into what advice to give. We all have a story. I can go back to undergraduate years and think of how and why it kind of the light went off and I was like, oh, I want to go into student affairs. I know the people that helped me get through things. So I think, like I said, we all have different stories, but stories of why we want to be in this field. And that brings me to the application and advice that I would give you is to, when you're filling out that application, to really be yourself and tell us who you are. I think that helps us to find the best fit for you on campus and offer that the right position and the right assistantship for you, right? So that you're in the right place. And then also to, you know, like I think we've said it before, we don't really necessarily sell our program and just talk you into coming, right? We want you to apply to different programs and find the one that really fits best for you, where you feel most comfortable, because that's going to be really important as well. If it doesn't feel right for you, it's going to be hard for you to succeed, right? There's so much support, so many people to help you here, but it has to be right for you.
I like that advice. I think that that's like really strong advice that is important to share, of like the program. Like, yes, you could want UConn, but something that I always reminded myself in the application process is like, even if I want UConn, like if UConn isn't the right fit, am I going to learn and grow in the program? And so I think reminding myself of that, and something that I continually did was like during personal statements and all of those things, like I had a great mentor, lucky for me. So if you don't, maybe this advice will resonate for you. But I was talking to them about like how bad I wanted to get into these universities that I was applying to. And one of the things that they advised me on is that like the personal statements and like spaces where you have a chance to share more about yourself, like use it. Like we really care about me being, as if I have a decision. But anyway, I feel like there is care and thought put into your humanity and who you actually are and like what you value. And I think that that speaks true to like, is this program also the right fit for you? Because if you end up in a program that maybe might not be the right fit, your experience might be challenging or might be different in different ways. So I think, like, as cheesy and cliche and probably like not descriptive that advice is, I think it's significant to use those moments and spaces to be true to who you are and share your values and like really more about yourself, because you're going to look good on paper. So that's a good thing already. So, but we really care about who you are.
Yeah, and I guess building on that, something I remember in the application process is when I was applying to multiple schools, you know, I would try to like use the same personal statement and then just like adopt it for the different applications. But UConn's application asked 2 essay questions that were particularly unique that I had to draft like completely original essays and personal statements for. So I guess just something to help you be successful in the application process for UConn specifically is like really leaning into the uniqueness of the application and not trying to have your response like fit a certain mold, really answering the questions like specifically and in ways that are authentically you, because I feel like that.
Awesome. I will say on the topic of finding the right place at the right time, 10 years ago, I applied to UConn HESA and I did not get in to the master's program. But then I went on to have a wonderful career at UConn in res life after I finished my master's degree elsewhere. And now I'm getting my PhD here. So I feel like everything worked out great. So that's just my little pep talk for the day. So if we can kind of shift gears again and talk a little bit more specifically, we have 15 minutes left, just exciting. Talk a little bit more specifically about what happens within classes, right? What does coursework actually look like within the HESA program? Are we reading? Are we writing? Are we discussing? Yes, we're doing all of those things. But if you could talk a little bit, maybe give some examples of what it actually looks like to get this degree in the classroom.
So I'm happy to kick it off and talk about like maybe how we as faculty, or at least I intend to frame some of the classes. I would say across the board, again, I brought the cohort community earlier and how we really value the richness of discussions that can happen in the cohort and dialogue across experiences. So I think that our classes tend to mostly be HESA students, and occasionally we'll have a few students from other programs in those courses, but really it's primarily students in the cohort for those classes, and they're discussion oriented. Like even I know there was a question about what the virtual experience is like. We are using this platform WebEx intentionally because it allows as many faces as possible on the screen simultaneously, because we still want to provide a learning environment where folks are seeing each other face to face and having a discussion. We also use small group conversations a lot. You know, again, in a virtual environment, it's breakouts and spaces. But we also, a lot of our projects in our courses are team-based projects, and that's not done for without intent. That the purpose of that is because we want folks to be collaborative professionals in the field and to have those skills to work across you know, different expectations and styles to successfully navigate and see through projects. So many of the culminating projects in our classes, again, are team-based. But yeah, Ashley, like you mentioned, we do have a lot of, there are writing assignments, there are presentations, there's reading, but again, I think to Trevor's point earlier, across all those different domains as far as assignments and readings and expectations, we as faculty try to be flexible and understand students' needs and to hear what students need along the way. And so there's also flexibility. Well, I think our goal is to provide a supportive but challenging learning environment, but to make sure we're meeting students where they're at for their success and what they need to be successful in their journeys.
Yep. I would say that everything Adam said, that was really a sum up of like, yeah, I think those are all really accurate. We have a lot of, at least I think we do a lot of small group discussion in my cohort. I really think it's adapted towards like what cohorts are responding to. I know that our cohort for the second years is more of a small group conversation holder and then bring it to the big group. Because believe me, if you start us off on a big group, we might be silent for a minute. And I think that's true. And I think our faculty work with us in those ways. Something that I think wasn't mentioned in what Adam said is that like, but said it earlier, is the reflection in our program. I would say in almost every single assignment, there is some element of reflection. Like, I'm not kidding, like every single assignment, whether it's a paper, if it's a group project, we're reflecting on either the process, what theories that we've used, our own like experiences. There's always some sense of reflection in every class and in every assignment. And I think that it's really, I appreciate it because it really helps like reading. There is a lot of reading. But again, like there is flexibility. And I think that there's never a time when I feel like I just have to bring the literature. Like I get to bring it from like my perspective, my experiences, and what does the literature bring to me after I've reflected on my own experiences. I don't think it's ever just like, yep, this is what this person said. It's always like how we've like perceived it and accepted it. So, yeah.
Oh, Trevor, we're having trouble hearing you.
This Wi-Fi, can you hear?
Oh, it's great now. I don't know what you just did.
I aggressively yelled at my computer. Yeah, to that point, I think if I just regurgitated something that I read in an article, it would not be accepted by the faculty. There's definitely like a push to always engage that a lot in the group projects for and the group projects provide just greater opportunity for me to get to know my cohort members well. Like I have 4 different group projects right now, and they each have like 3 or 4 people on them, and they're all different teams. So it's great getting the experience collaborating with like a bunch of different people and getting to know people in my cohort even more intimately through those assignments.
And actually, one thing I just forgot about, I want to chime back in, is we also aim to have very applied assignments that are very experiential and applied to, whether it's, again, reflecting on your own identity and experiences that relates to your assistantship or other lived experiences, or whether it's the assessment project that is actually engaging in real assessment and doing a service to a site, right? I think that there's really some strong intentionality to our assignments, that there's something meaningful coming from it, that it's not just an exercise to demonstrate learning.
Awesome. Okay, I'm going to answer a couple of sort of logistical questions about fee waivers and housing. So firstly, we do have limited housing available on campus for graduate students. I will be honest, it's not a lot. So the vast majority of our graduate students do live off campus. Of course, we have a number of GAs who work in Res Life, and they live on campus. Trevor, with the wonderful Wi-Fi just now, is living on campus. I think that is important to know, right? For the vast majority of HESA students are living off campus. Tuition waivers and fee waivers are the same for all GAs. So tuition is waived within your GA position, and then we have fee waivers as well for GAs. For domestic students, the fee waiver comes out to be about $1,200 to $1,300 a year. For international students, the fee waiver comes out to be about $1,900 per year. So we do still pay some fees for GAs, but we do have some wonderful fee waivers that are available. So just wanted to address those, and then pose another discussion question, which I'm going to add a little bit to. So we got a question, what is life like in stores? But I would just also add that a lot of our HESA community doesn't live in stores. So maybe if you could shed some light generally on what's life like going to school in stores, maybe living in the larger area around campus in Connecticut as well.
I was gonna say, I can start us off. Great. So I am from I'm from California. So West Coast, transferred to East Coast. I live in Vernon, Connecticut, which is approximately like 15 to 20 minutes away from stores, depending on your drive and snow and all that. It's life, you know. I feel like depending on where you're coming from, it's either way more lively or not. I think I struggled initially because I came from an area, I went to school in the Bay Area kind of region. So there was always a lot happening, obviously pre-COVID times. But I think that it's not here in Connecticut. In my first year, I really struggled, and I was like, there's nothing to do in Connecticut. This all is not fun. But I think slowly, as I thought about what there is to do in Connecticut, and in the surrounding states when that is safe, I think there is a lot to do. It just depends on what your investment is into learning what is here. Because I think, again, first year I was stuck in this no, and now I'm like, oh my gosh, there's this really beautiful park literally 5 minutes away. I'm just gonna walk there with my dog. And I think those are all things that I missed my first year. But life in stores is what is that word? I think it's just, people say it's quiet. It's a quiet stores experience. But that's, I think, the Connecticut experience, excluding New Haven, Stamford area. That's closer to New York. I think that's a different vibe than over here.
Yeah, speaking to that, I grew up in the New Haven area, which is much more densely populated than stores. So it definitely feels rural, and that's real. There's also a lot of benefits to that too. Honestly, it's just really pretty. Driving around in my car, there's gorgeous hills and just fields that are beautiful. That I don't know. It's sure. In terms of things to do, there's food. Restaurants is definitely one of the biggest things outside of the natural restaurants. That's it.
Thank you, Trevor. It sounds like you're putting fireworks off on your laptop a little bit. So But yes, I will second the foliage you just highlighted. It's a beautiful location, and there is lots of good food around. Anything else that folks want to add on that question?
I would just quickly add that for folks who are interested in cities, we are fairly close to Hartford, and I actually live in the Boston area and commute down to UConn, but Boston's only about an hour and a half away, and then New York City, someone correct me if I'm wrong, is about 2.5 hours away. So we are closely in proximity to some major urban metropolitan areas, if that is an area of interest to you.
Absolutely. How far New York is depends greatly on the time of day that you are trying to get there. Okay, so as we wrap up, I just want to thank all of our attendees for these wonderful questions. I think that we had a really lively discussion with lots of great things to consider. So I do want to also thank our panelists for your time and your insights and your commitment to our program. And I encourage all of our attendees to visit our website. We have a FAQs page there. It's HESA.UConn.edu. We also have all of our application information, as we talked about before. So that's going to be pretty important as you review. In addition, a lot of the things that we've been talking about tonight, as I said, we have been featuring some of the answers to these questions on our social media through our Friday FAQs feature. So we encourage you to follow us on Instagram, follow us on Twitter, like us on Facebook, because we're sharing a lot of great information, and there's a lot of great alumni engagement from our program on social media as well. So please feel free to follow up with any questions at all by emailing us at HESA@UConn.edu. You now know who is on the other side of HESA@UConn.edu, so you can feel free to say, hey, Ashley, when you write the email, and I'll be happy to get back to you as quickly as possible. Thank you all again for being with us tonight and for your interest in our program. And please take care, and hopefully we will see more of you in the future. Bye, everyone.
Thank you all.